Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Amid escalating political turmoil, Vice President Sara Duterte breaks her silence on her impending Senate trial, a potential plunder case, and the fate of her father.
At least 12 Filipinos are reported injured amid escalating tension between Israel and Iran.
The ICC's Office of the Prosecutor is set to respond to former President Duterte's request for interim release.
News 5 and 1PH anchor Cheryl Cosim sits down for an exclusive one-on-one interview with President Bongbong Marcos. Catch the full episode today at 3 p.m. on the official social media pages of News 5, 1PH, 1 News, True FM, and the Presidential Communications Office.
The number of injured Filipinos amid the conflict between Israel and Iran have climbed to 12. Here's the report.
Iran launched a fresh aerial attack on Israel on Sunday night, injuring at least 2 people and igniting fires, according to Israeli authorities. Emergency services rushed to the strike site on the northern Israeli city of Haifa. A damaged building, cars and debris could be seen. The attack came after Israel announced its warplanes had begun a new wave of airstrikes in western Iran, targeting missile launchers. These are all under Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Operation Rising Lion, as he claims Iran has recently taken steps to weaponize enriched uranium, which could be used to make nuclear weapons. President Donald Trump said he hopes Israel and Iran can broker a deal, but noted that sometimes countries have to fight it out first. According to Trump, the U.S. will continue to support the defense of Israel, but declined to ask if he asked the U.S. ally to pause strikes on Iran.
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Dozens of people have been reported dead or injured on both sides. At least 12 Filipinos have also been hurt, according to Philippine Ambassador to Israel, Eileen Mendiola. Over 20 other Filipinos were evacuated. The Philippine Embassy has vowed to support for affected Filipinos.
Vice President Sara Duterte breaks her silence on several controversial issues. She addresses a possible Senate investigation, a looming plunder complaint, and growing concerns over her father's legal fate. Here's a report.
Vice President Sara Duterte led the oath-taking ceremony of several newly elected officials from Mindanao. After the ceremony, the Vice President granted an exclusive interview with News 5. She addressed a range of pressing issues, including calls from some quarters for Senators Robin Padilla and Amy Marcos to inhibit themselves from participating as senator judges in the impeachment court. According to VP Sara, they are not the only ones who should be considered for inhibition.
Kung disqualify natin, ipapa-inhibit natin ang mga biased na senators, madami tayong ipapa-inhibit din. Tulad ni Senator Risa Ontiveros na sa isang public speech niya ay sinabi, kailangan sirain ang mga Duterte. Si Senator Chis Escudero, si Senator Pimentel na nagsabi, ano ba sinabi sa akin? Unhinged. Parang yun ba ang term na ginamit sa akin? Basta ang sinabi ay lukaret. Kung ganun ang pagbabasihan natin, ay madami ang dapat ipa-inhibit.
She confirmed that her camp has already received a summons from the Senate. It has been referred to her legal team, and she is awaiting their advice on whether she should appear before the impeachment court.
Wala pang instructions ang mga lawyers sa akin kung pupunta ba ako or hindi.
When asked about President Bongbong Marcos' statement expressing openness to a dialogue to resolve the impeachment conflict,
no comment.
However, she issued a pointed remark directed at Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro, who recently made comments about certain individuals allegedly willing to exploit or be exploited politically.
Di ba sinabi ko na sa iyo si Claire Castro, pinsan ni Franz Castro, at pag pag Castro family, yung dalawa lang naman yan sila sa pamilya na yan, Claire Castro at Franz Castro, wala na talagang maganda at tama na lalabas dyan galing sa bibig nila. Sabi ko nga, di ba, ano sabi ko? Garbage in, garbage out. Pagdating dyan sa dalawang Castro na yan.
The Vice President also answered questions about the recommendation from a House committee to file a plunder case against her. The charges stem from the alleged misuse of confidential funds under the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education during her time as Secretary.
Kung ako, okay lang. Dahil politiko ako, gusto ko rin sumagot sa loob ng korte. Pero naaawa ako dahil sa mga threats sa harassment na ito ay merong mga empleyado ng ating opisina na nadadamay, na hindi naman kailangan madamay.
As for her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte, who remains in ICC custody in The Hague, the Vice President said she does not yet know which country he might be transferred to, should the ICC approve his request for provisional release.
This is a welcome development, ang pag-file ng interim release ng lawyers ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. At masaya ako na nabalitaan ko na meron silang na-file na request for interim release, at ang dasal nating lahat at panawagan natin lahat ay makinig ang ICC judges at maging patas sila sa pagdesisyon base doon sa submission ng Defense Counsel.
Public school students across the country returned to classrooms today as the school year 2025-2026 officially opened. According to the Department of Education, around 27.6 million students are expected nationwide. Ahead of the opening, DepEd streamlined enrollment requirements in public schools, allowing parents to submit their child's birth certificate only once for their entire K-12 education. Education Secretary Sani Angara said the move is meant to ease the burden on families and ensure students don't miss the first day of classes due to incomplete documents.
Now, classes for the school year 2025 to 2026 officially opened today, June 16. Joining us for updates is mobile journalist JF Rivera. JF, saang school ka ngayon?
Angela, Diego, andito tayo ngayon sa Jose Rizal Elementary School dito sa Pasay City na formal na nga pinuksan ang academic school year 2025 and 2026.
So, kamusta naman so far ang opening ng classes? How is yung traffic management at saka yung pagtugon ng mga school authorities sa flow ng mga estudyante? Maayos ba?
Yes, Diego. Kanina, smooth talaga ang naging from flag ceremony hanggang sa hinatid sila sa mga kanilang classroom. Smooth ang nangyari at wala naman tayo nakitang mga problema along the way. So, masasabi natin na maayos na na-handle ng mga kaguruan dito sa Jose Rizal Elementary School ang mga estudyante at talaga nakapaghanda sila para dito sa balik eskwela.
Ilang estudyante ba yung inaasahan natin na papasok ngayong taon diyan sa Jose Rizal Elementary School?
Angela, ang ina-expect nila ay mahigit 2,000 students dahil nga sa nakaraang taon ay umabot daw sa 2,060 students ang meron. At ngayon naman meron pang mga pumapasok, mga late enrollees at may mga transferees. So within this week makukuha nila ang total mismo nung ina-expect nilang student sa ngayong school year. Pero ina-expect nila ngayon mahigit daw talaga 2,000 ang papasok ngayong academic school year.
Oo, yung mga late enrollees or transferees kasi ang karamihan sa kanila kulang na lang ng mga requirements. Kahit kulang pa ng requirements, pwede bang pumasok na yung mga estudyante tas to follow na lang?
Yes, Diego, dito bini-welcome daw nila yung mga late enrollees, lalo na yung may mga kulang na requirements sa mga estudyante. Pero ang dyan, kailangan talaga nila ma-comply within a week or within a month. Kailangan makipag-compromise sila sa mismong administration ng mga ng eskwelahan na ito.
Kamusta naman yung police visibility dyan sa area ng Jose Rizal Elementary School, which is sabi kasi ng PNP, magde-deploy sila ng 37,000 plus na mga police, no, within the nationwide, ano, para nga bantayan itong opening ng classes.
Angela, kanina, bago pa lang, siguro mga alas 5 pa lang, andito na yung mga kapulisan nakapantay na. At up until now, they're here sa labas mismo ng gate ng school na ito at nakabantay pa rin sila. At nakausap nga natin sila kanina na magbabantay daw sila dito hanggang sa mag-uwian ang mga estudyante dito sa paaralang ito.
Lastly, on my end, JF, would you know kung ilan yung ratio ng isang classroom dyan per class? At meron din bang shortage of classroom, shortage of teachers na problema na kinakaharap ang Jose Rizal Elementary School?
Okay, sa ratio ng per student per classroom, meron silang 30 to 40 students. Max na yung 40. At ang kagandahan dito, mula naman silang shortage teachers. Ganon din sa facility. At one shift lang sila, morning shift lang ang meron sila dahil nga kaya nilang i-accommodate ang ganong karaming estudyante dito sa school na ito. Kaya hindi na rin katakataka kung bakit medyo malaki ang populasyon ng paaralang ito.
Alright, maraming salamat sa iyong oras. That was our mobile journalist, JF Rivera. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Health Department supports the call to lower the speed limit to 30 kilometers per hour in Metro Manila and other areas to help reduce road accidents. Here's the report.
A scar on Marlon Balbuena's left eye is a lasting reminder of a motorcycle crash he survived years ago. Back then, he wasn't wearing a helmet and had 2 passengers riding with him.
Basag tong aking cheekbone, meron akong mandibular fracture, as well as dito nabasag yung dito ko. 9 hours akong, sabi ko 9 hours akong patay. Parang wala akong malay-malay.
Years later, he got into another accident, this time in a car, after missing a warning sign about road construction.
Simula nung nangyari noon, nagiging mas doble, triple na akong ingat. Very defensive na ako. So, ay masakit. Masakit, mahirap. Binigyan ako ng pangatlo eh. Baka hindi na umabot ng pang-apat.
Each year, around 12,000 Filipinos die from road crashes, according to the Department of Health. That's an average of 33 lives lost per day. Road crashes are also among the leading causes of death among Filipinos aged 5 to 29. Most of those killed are motorcycle riders, followed by pedestrians. The DOH urges the public to drive responsibly, emphasizing that road crashes are preventable.
Kasi pag ikaw ay hindi nag-behave well sa road, ang uwi mo ay sa emergency department. Sana hindi dun sa Oscar, sabi ng asang rider, hospital o karwahe.
But road safety advocates say behavior alone isn't the issue. The Move as One coalition is calling for speed limits in cities to be reduced to 30 kilometers per hour, a standard already in place in many countries.
Sa mga urban areas na nag-adapt ng 30 kilometer speed limit, after 2 years, they found that traffic actually improved. Why? Because slower, safer traffic encouraged more people to walk, to cycle, and to use public transport.
The DOH supports the proposal, but says laws already in place must be strictly enforced. These include the Motorcycle Helmet Act, the Seatbelt Law, and the No Contact Apprehension Program or NCAP.
Maka-lax yung ating implementation. Ang dami ng laws eh. Yung NCAP, maraming nahuhuli for speeding, for yung mga illegal traffic movements. So malaking tulong din yon to decrease road crashes.
The DOH aims to reduce serious injuries and fatalities by half by 2028.
Yan, more than yung pagdadagdag ng laws. Tama si Sec, ang dami ng laws.
Daming laws.
More than that, paigtingin ang implementation ng driver's ed. Because kahit ano pa yung mga laws mo, karamihan sa mga driver, they don't understand the traffic signs.
Implementation ng driver's education and implementation mismo ng batas.
But more than anything, kahit ano pa batas meron ka dyan, kung yung driver's education mo is mahina, useless din. Because minsan hindi alam ng driver ano yung signs, ano yung protocol from merging left-right ng lanes, ilan meters ba ang di ba usually hindi alam ng tao, 50 to 100 meters.
Ano yung mga broken lines doon, ano yung straight lines.
Pag broken lines, you can merge to the other lane. Pag solid lines, di ba that means you can't transfer lanes. Mga simple things like that.
It's also good yung mga ganun na ma-educate yung mga riders, yung mga motorists. Kasi iwas rin yan panloloko ng mga nangungotong na mga enforcers minsan, di ba? Minsan sinasabi na, ganito yung ginawa mo. Yung pala, wala ka naman talaga na violate.
Parang yung violation na swerving. Wala naman talagang swerving na violation. Ang violation is reckless driving, di ba? Pero, what constitutes reckless driving? Kailangan maintindihan din ng isang motorista. Bawal pala ako ganito, mag-gewang-gewang sa lane. Hindi ko nagagawin kasi reckless driving. So, at the end of the day, it all starts with voters' education. Driver's education. At the end of the day.
And I also believe na it's really high time that we should address these problems kasi every day we're in the news, lagi natin na babalita yung iba't ibang mga road accidents. And according to DOH, ang road accidents the fifth cause of death, di ba, dito sa ating Pilipinas. So, it's really high time na ma-address ito by doing these things. Pero yung sinasabi ng Move as One, particularly, yung mga advocates na gawin daw 30 kilometers per 30 kilometers per hour yung speed limit.
Hindi nyo na kailangan gawin yan.
Di ba super traffic na dito?
Ang average speed ng on a rush hour, on a rush hour, ang average speed natin is 22 to 28 kilometers per hour.
Pero kasi I get what they mean kinda, no? Doon sa mga times na sa gabi. Kasi dyan maraming mga aksidente na pagdating sa gabi, wala nang masyadong, yung mga wee hours, diba? Wala nang masyadong sasakyan sa kalye. Diyan talaga humaharurot yung mga
but then again,
motorists.
Limiting your speed can also cause accidents. If you're too slow, pwede ka mag-cause ng accident. If you're too fast, sa limit, pwede ka rin mag-cause ng accident. At the end of the day, uulitin ko, driver's education. If you have educated drivers, you have already sufficient laws right now. All you need to do is,
efficient enforcers.
Teach them how to use signal lights, teach them ano kailan mo gagamitin ng hazard.
Di ba pagka motorcycle rider ka din, meron kayo mga signaling system like hand gestures?
In the event na may ulan at sira ang tail light mo, there's a certain gestures that you do, di ba, yung baba, sa
courtesy
taas.
Talaga. Courtesy din sa sa kali, importante yan.
At the end of the day, babagsak na naman sa driver's ed lahat yan.
Right.
Kasi kung educated tayo lahat sa daan, di ba? Wala tayong less accidents, less road rage.
Right. But ito,
the bus company involved in the viral assault of a man with a disability has issued a statement. Here's the report.
The bus company involved in the June 9 EDSA busway incident has submitted the written statements of its driver and conductor after a video went viral showing a man with a disability being assaulted by fellow passengers. The Department of Transportation summoned the company to explain why its personnel failed to protect Ilyas Mark, who is on the autism spectrum. In the viral video, Mark can be seen being repeatedly punched and kicked at the back of a public bus. At one point, he was even choked and allegedly electrocuted.
BGT sa bus, kulay yellow, red at saka masakit yan. Didi at saka likod at saka kuyente katawan, kuyente. Ulo. Kuyente ng ulo. Mag-away, sunto. Sa panakay sa BWD.
Following this, the Transportation Department suspended the licenses of the bus driver and conductor. The agency also placed 10 of the company's EDSA busway units under a 30-day preventive suspension.
Pero based on our initial reports, walang ginawa yung konduktor. Pinabayaan lang. O kaya, kung hindi nila kaya, marami talaga, dapat tuminto sila lahat ng staff ng ating busway ay may saik. That is a failure of the driver and the conductor.
Meanwhile, the bus company explained.
Nagpasaklulo sila sa mga naka-duty sa main avenue. Base doon sa salaysay, nakiusap naman daw itong naka-duty na Coast Guard, pero hindi nila napababa yung pasahero na nangagat. Siguro sa pag-aakala na kalmado na, pinaabante na sila. Kaya itinigil na nila sa Buendia. Kinausap ng driver-conductor na tumigil na kasi dadalhin na lang nila sa pulis. Si konduktor na ang nang-awat at nakiusap doon sa mga tao, siya na ang sumalag doon sa kumupuyog para maibaba nila yung tao.
The National Council on Disability Affairs strongly condemned the attack, calling it a violation of the revised penal code. They also urged the public to report similar incidents to the PNP, Persons with Disabilities Affairs Offices, and the NCDA. Meanwhile, the DOTR is coordinating with the police to identify and charge the passengers involved in the assault. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
Grabe pala yun. 25 years old yung PWD that was ganged up on the allegedly tased by his fellow passengers inside a bus.
Oo, dapat kasi like sa, di ba, sa other countries may tag ka if you have a disability.
I think we have it here, pero hindi lang na i-implement. Ganun na naman tayo, no? Kasi
Batas
lahat
ba?
ng mga, I think it's part of the Magna Carta of the PWD.
Na may tag ka?
Na may tag ka. Pero dito kasi sa atin, hindi siya talaga na i-implement ng maayos.
Para kung mandatory ba na suotin mo yan? Kasi how can you penalize somebody?
Oh, no. It's not mandatory. It's within the... alam ko yun, I'm not really sure. Pero alam ko kasi pag during the meeting, pagka nakaka-attend ako ng ganyan, napag-uusapan yun eh. Tapos may mga kakilala ako na families talaga na sinusuotan nila ng ID yung mga anak nila. Okay, I'm Josie, di ba? I have autism. Yung mga
nag-gets yun, pero siguro it's not mandatory on the end of the person wearing it. But we have to educate them more. Na it's a privilege to wear this because pag, di ba, you are identified as one, then yung mga kasama mo sa isang, let's say, public transport, makakaunawa sa kondisyon mo, di ba? Like, yung, for example, si Marlon Tourette's, di ba? He has
driver siya ng isang
taxi, motorcycle taxi. TNVS ata, di ba? Meron siyang tag sa loob ng car niya. I am Marlon, tuturo niya yan eh. I have Tourette's, but I am clear to drive and I am safe and I have no accident. May ano siya diba?
Parang disclaimer kumbaga.
Kasi minsan kung di mo kilala kung ano yung condition niya, iniisip mo kung ba't siya gumaganyan, di ba? So at least, if you're identified na kung ano yung condition mo, it's easier to understand.
Apparently dito, nangagat daw siya ng mga passengers. So akala siguro ng mga ibang pasahero, yung mga typical na napapanood natin sa TV na, na manyak, di ba? Nagtitake advantage sa mga pasahero. Pero yun nga, so ang inaano nila dito, dapat yung driver at saka yung conductor tumigil at pinigil itong nangyari na bunugan.
Yes, para hindi na mag-escalate yung problema. Alright, don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The International Criminal Court's Office of the Prosecutor says it will respond to former President Duterte's request for interim release. However, it did not confirm whether they support Duterte's plea or not. Duterte's lawyers earlier claimed the prosecution does not oppose the release under certain conditions. But lawyers on the side of the victims urged the ICC to reject the request, warning it could endanger those seeking justice for drug war abuses.
Let's discuss that further with ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti.
Good morning, Attorney. Thanks for joining us again.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, so what are the chances po na, let's say, mag-grant yung request ng Duterte camp para po sa interim release?
Well, I wouldn't know with the court, and I've said it's around 50-50 because there are points that merit kumbaga, not granting, and then there are other points that could say, well, let's grant it. But one big point is that there is no precedent as to the interim release of an accused for crimes against humanity.
So kumbaga kasi, attorney, yung pinapoint out, meron daw precedent with smaller cases, pero yung kaso ni former President Duterte medyo mabigat. Will the court take into serious consideration, attorney, baka you could enlighten us, yung mga statements ng mga witnesses?
Well, yes. The potential threat to witnesses and victims will be considered by the court. and the overall situation, kumbaga, will be factored in. Ito yung sa discussion na rin ng interests of justice. Will his release help in the case overall or not?
Attorney, baka you can help me out a little, no? Because I read the statement, I don't know if this was officially from the defense team, but sinabi nila Mr. Duterte will not be able to continue, nakalagay, to commit crimes. So parang, I don't understand why you would do that if you were part of a defense
parang
team.
May admission.
Parang may admission na may crime ka nang ginawa dati at pag release ka, he will not continue to do it.
Well, this is a legal tactic. I do not think, kumbaga, this is a legal tactical strategy. Kumbaga, hindi naman siya admission of guilt in a sense. Although it would appear so, kasi he's, actually, hindi ko din alam kung bakit nakakagulat. Kasi umamin na matagal lang sinasabi ni Duterte ang kasalanan ko, extrajudicial killings. So kung para sa akin, that's nothing new. But, he needs to say that explicitly just to push for this request. There are certain grounds for the court to deny it, and that is included. If there is a great probability that this person will continue committing the crimes or will commit crimes, among them yung flight risk, etc. So these are, kumbaga, words or statements that you need to make to argue for an urgent request for release. Of course, it's another thing altogether if these statements are true.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Attorney, the defense argument states, I'm sure you know about this, Duterte is no longer the president of the Philippines and does not command the same influence or power he said to have abused during the period of these alleged crimes. Pero we all know naman po that he is still influential in terms of like, nanalo po siyang mayor sa Davao, yung anak po niya vice president ng ating bansa, yung anak niyang isa vice mayor ng Davao. So, 'di ba po ba parang hindi this will state pa rin po na influential pa rin siya?
Yes, you're correct. Everything that you mentioned, we will raise, hopefully, hopefully this week in our opposition or observation. But we'd also like to point out that the context of his commission of the crimes is not simply because, it did not only occur when he was president of the Philippines, but more particularly, it started when he was mayor of Davao, of which he is mayor-elect of now. And he was founder and head of the DDS.
Yes, that's right.
So, regardless of president siya, vice president siya, kahit congressman pa siya, as long as he could be connected or is still connected to the Davao Death Squad, and at this point, it could have morphed. It could have been, kumbaga, it could have developed into a different thing altogether as what happened in different situations. Alam yan ng ICC that, kumbaga, quote-unquote, headless, these kinds of criminal organizations can do so many things. Kumbaga, may individual factions which could act on their own doing. And so that's what the ICC is minimizing. Kaya, even Duterte, I think he's pointing this out. He agrees that he will not talk to media in the sense that he should not be able to inflame his supporters further. But it could be directed towards, ang tingin kasi natin, pang DDS ito or yung Duterte diehard supporters. But it could also be directed to the real DDS, yung mga Davao Death Squads.
Tsaka, Attorney, even if the former president himself, diba, is not allowed to talk to media, there's also the issue na his daughter is the vice president, his son is the vice mayor, his other son is the congressman. So they could be the ones and parang de facto sila magsalita. Technically, they won't be breaking any terms. So will the ICC be taking a look that every other member of his family is in power?
Yes, I hope so, that they understand that in the Philippines, politics is an entirely different animal. It's similar maybe in some respects to other countries, but not in the sense of sa Pilipinas sa atin yung iba yung parang paninindigan nyo sa pamilya when you say this last name. Parang, oo, yes, this is
Yes.
what they represent. And for the Dutertes, for so long, they've been known to be kumbaga hardliners. Tatay nila, Dirty Harry or
Yeah.
The Punisher. And whatever they say, I mean, Sara herself has taken action. Di ba yung may sinuntok siyang sheriff?
Right.
Has taken action and they're really, kumbaga, they're able to transform or to use their words to effect action.
Okay. Attorney, can you also enlighten us to the legality and what it means for the victims para dun po sa difference ng nasa ICC detention center si former President Rodrigo Duterte or mag-grant yung kanyang interim release when in fact, at the end of the day, didinggin pa rin naman yung kanyang kaso?
Yeah, well, kumbaga, technically, if you take out everything from the equation, what's important is that the trial on September 23 pushes through, whether he's in detention or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Baga, kahit ma-release siya, okay lang naman kasi nandyan naman din siya at sisipot. Kaya lang yung context nito at yung implications on a larger scale would be, for us, especially the victims who until now are unwilling to come forward because precisely they're still in power.
Right.
And you have two types of victims who are participating in the case and victims who will testify in the case, yung witnesses. At importante ito dun sa victims na magte-testify o magiging witness. Not all of the victims will be witnesses, but at the least they could participate. Yung witnesses, mahihirapan kasi alam nyo dito sa ICC, hindi sila nag-o-offer ng, siguro ang itsura ng witness protection na naiisip ng iba, kasi nakikita sa pelikula, yung magpapalit kang pangalan, papalit ka ng bahay, entirely new identity. That does not and will probably not happen in the ICC Witness Protection Program. They have very limited considerations and, more importantly, they rely on the cooperation of the state where the victims are. The Philippines is not a member. Kaya parang ang hirap kung kunyari, hindi nila basta-basta maililipad yung biktima sa, sabihin na natin, for example, sa Netherlands. Yung pamilya niya, may anak, may asawa, may extended family, and so forth. Paano ang trabaho? Kaya we have to think about yung witness protection as kumbaga in-country, walang mababago. Sige, tanggalin nyo na lang sa Pilipinas para hindi sila matakot. No, that might not probably be the best way forward.
So, Attorney, baka you can help us understand this a little na. Kunyari, let's say, hypothetically, tapos na ang trial, whether guilty or not guilty ang verdict, does the witness protection program ng ICC extend to even after the trial? Or sila mismo directly ba ang mga kasiwa ng witness protection? Or it's a recommendation lang to the countries that are party to the ICC?
Well, problem is, as far as I know, the witness protection terminates at the end of the trial.
So after, wala na?
In fact, in certain instances, yung pag-testify mo lang, basta makaupo ka lang, tapos na. Kasi, again, the ICC has no, kumbaga, its powers are limited only by what their member states can offer. So it's up to the member states actually. Actually, if a member state offers lifelong protection, then maybe, but that's
good.
Fall under the framework of kumbaga asylum na, mas more of that. Yung witness talagang forever nang aalis dun sa bansa. Pero yung ganituhan na parang aalis habang may hearing or i-secure hanggang maybe 20 years, sabi na natin, walang ganong framework. Kasi ang ano nila, actually ito kaya this has to be also pointed out for the Marcos administration. The premise is, there are proceedings before the ICC against the top-ranking official, yung talagang most responsible. But there should also be prosecution and investigations in the country or the low-ranking para i-weed out mo yung lahat ng kumbaga masasamang damo.
Yeah.
Kumbaga, that in essence, ang punto niyan dapat walang threat sa biktima dito sa Pilipinas or even abroad. Kaya it's not a perfect world, so we have to do what we can.
Kumbaga, attorney, just to understand it, kasi with the very premise of trying the person responsible, let's say, in any country whatsoever, yung crimes against humanity is to cleanse this issue and hopefully to prevent it from happening again. But the point is, even if you take out the head, the people underneath have to be weeded out. But that's not the problem anymore of the ICC. Kumbaga, is it the country involved kung saan nanggaling yung head, dapat mag-weed out nun?
Yes. Kaya yung term na complementarity, may dalawa yan eh. Uy, complement tayo. Kumbaga, color wheel. Complement ng ganitong color is the other. It means one does what the other cannot. And if the ICC will target or will try yung the heads, sa Pilipinas, dapat yung small fry.
What if, kasi I just like to touch on that a little, what if the country is not amenable to that? Kasi in our situation kasi in the Philippines, medyo friendly sa ICC ang ating government, so that is a possibility. But in the other countries, there's still the ones who are detained still enjoy a majority of support from the other politicians. So what happens in that situation?
Well, it depends on yung politics, pero in other countries, in some African states, they were able to push through with reconciliation mechanisms, or what we call generally transitional justice mechanisms. Among them, yung parang yung Truth Commission, you come forward, tapos magkakapatawaran.
Right.
Pwede yun. Pwedeng prosecution, pwedeng investigation. Pero importante, ito ay issue na hindi lang may pinatay ito, tapos na. Hindi. May inutos ito at ang kailangan i-address yung policy. And in fact, we're even looking at policy changes in government. Right. And although Marcos has already said that we're pursuing a different track, Nicolas Torre has said, hindi kami papatay. Pero sabi pa rin niya, it's a law and order problem, drugs. What we've always emphasized is that drugs is both socio-economic and a public health issue.
Right.
Yun ang kailangang i-address sa ngayon.
Okay. Attorney Conti, lastly po, I want to go back dun sa request for the interim release galing po sa Duterte camp. Yung statement po nila, yung request was heavily redacted. Nakita po natin doon, hindi po nila nilagay kung anong country. Number one question would be, yung host country po ba ay kailangan talaga member ng ICC? Yun lang yung po pwedeng pumayag o pwede rin outside the membership of the ICC? And also, I also asked this to Attorney Butuyan last time, kung tama ba yun na heavily redacted or hindi po nakalagay doon yung country na nire-requestan po nila ng interim release?
Well, as to, kumbaga, issue kasi ito ng compliance. Kaya yung, kumbaga, technically, the ICC would have invited the Assembly of State Parties, all member states, to weigh in and say, sinong gustong tumanggap? Pero may gusto nang tumanggap pala. As far as the rules say, dapat member state because of enforceability of a warrant of arrest or orders of the court. Pero ako, kumbaga, possible din na non-member state. But, possible din kung sakasakali. But, if yung submission na rin nila mismo ang nagsabi at naglimit na nakalagay doon na the volunteering or the receiving state is far from the geographic scope of the incident. Geographic scope meaning Philippines and Davao.
Okay.
So may gano'n na tayong reliance. And then as to country ba o saan ba pupunta, mas secondary na nga yan para sa akin. Yung redactions, I think mas importante para sa ating malaman ngayon yung conditions. Kumbaga saan man yan mapunta, ano yung hihilingin sa kanya? Bawal siyang umalis ng bansa, sasamsamin yung passport, magre-report siya sa ICC how many days,
right.
saan siya pwedeng pumunta, saan ang bahay niya, etc.
Alright, on that note, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras sa ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti. Thank you so much.
Salamat, ingat.
Right, in other news, the Philippine and Japanese navies conducted joint anti-submarine warfare exercises in the West Philippine Sea on June 14. This marks their first major joint operation since the ratification of the Reciprocal Access Agreement between the two countries. The Philippine Navy deployed the BRP Miguel Malvar, an AW-159 anti-submarine helicopter, and a C-208 or 208 surveillance aircraft. Japan, on the other hand, sent the destroyer JS Takanami and an SH-60K Seahawk helicopter. The drills aimed to enhance maritime security cooperation and interoperability. Activities included communication checks, cross-deck operations, and tactical maneuvers.
The power crisis in Siquijor is taking a toll on the island's tourism industry. The province, now under a state of calamity, has faced daily rotational brownouts for nearly a month, leading to canceled bookings and dwindling visitor numbers. Several resort operators say potential guests now ask about backup generators before making reservations. Tourist drivers are also affected, reporting fewer trips and clients. Meanwhile, Malacanang on Sunday said power supply has been restored for homes, businesses, and schools following President Bongbong Marcos' directive to address the issue.
Intro nila sa inquiries is na if may generator ba kayo. So, if in case wala kami generator, so for sure, yung guests hindi magbubook dito. Before yung fully booked kami, like we have 8 rooms lang naman. Like ngayon, we have 2 rooms, 3 rooms na lang. Oo. Ang laki. Yes, grabe yung epekto, sir.
Now let's discuss that further. We have Attorney Dale Tudtud, Provincial Administrator and Tourism Officer of Siquijor. Good morning po. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning po, sir. Good morning po, ma'am. Good morning, everyone.
Alright, hingi lang po kami ng update doon sa rotational brownout. Ilang oras pa po walang kuryente? Kasi the last time we checked, parang 2 to 6 hours a day and putol-putol daw po yung mga na-experience sa mga residente. But with the announcement of President Bongbong Marcos na ibalik daw po yung kuryente, may mga reports din po kaming nakita na nabalik daw po yung power without interruption. Your reaction on that po?
Yes po. Well, based on the reports that we've gotten, as well as on the ground, since majority of the gensets have already arrived. In fact, all of the rental gensets have already arrived. We are currently working at around 8 of the 11 generator sets in the island. As it's no longer peak season, I think we have enough dependable capacity na to last without having to resort to rotational brownouts po. But of course, we want to make sure that there is still extra leeway, so we're working to repair the additional 3 gensets.
So right now, the island power is based sa capacity ng gensets. How about po yung actual power plants? May resolution na po ba dito? Kasi ang concern ng ibang business owners, kahit may genset daw, sa panig ng mga turista, medyong iffy sila sa ganyan, di ba? So, stability daw ang hinahanap nila.
Yes po. At the moment kasi, of the 11 generators of SIPCOR, only 8 are working of the 11. Kaya we're trying to repair the remaining 3 po. And when all of them are working in unison po.
Okay.
We also have for a long-term solution, which the President gave a 6-month timetable po, to have a supplemental power agreement. And this will be open technology po. So it will also include possible renewable options. It will also involve any players that want to get into the island. So it could possibly be diesel, it could possibly be solar, it could be wind. We're looking at the best option, and I think yung procuring entity dyan is NEA. So I think I'm confident they'll make the best decision for the island po.
Okay. So ano na po yung mga possible implications nito on the economic sector po ng Siquijor? We've seen reports also yung mga tourists daw na nag-i-inquire dyan. Kasama na dun sa tanong nila would be may brownout pa ba? Ilang oras ba yung brownout? Matatamaan? Etc.
Yes po. Well, at this time, we're actually going below the peak season na naman. We're approaching like the medyo lean season until it starts picking up again in December. But yes, even if it's an off season, we've already had a steady influx of tourists, which has, as of today's report, gradually seen a decrease because of the report on melioidosis and power po. But overall naman po, I think there's still a steady influx of tourists. We're just hoping that, of course, that we move past this issue po as power improves over time.
Ang katanungan din dito, attorney, yung mga if ever, no, it's good to hear naman that you said steady influx of tourists pa rin. Pero for mga businesses that might be affected or are badly affected, will there be discounts in terms of yung pagbayad ng taxes, or may mga subsidies or any kind of assistance that will be given to them?
Well, I think the province is also discussing with Proscelco as to an electric bill rebate, because it's not just the private establishments po, but it's also the daily residents who were deprived of power during the past few months that are calling for a possible electric bill rebate, because I think there's still been a significant portion that's been apportioned, because people actually still get billed even more, because yung mangyayari kasi sometimes ma-off yung electricity, and then when it comes back, people have to plug in their electricity again, so tataas din yung mga electronic bills nila. So hopefully they're hoping that they can possibly explore rebate on the bills for the past 2 months po.
Okay, so as for the long-term solution po, meron na po ba tayong gagawin doon sa, kasi ito pong SI Power had failed to modernize the aging 6.4 megawatt po na plant, ano? Are we going to replace them already for the long-term solution po?
Well, on the province's end po, we assist NEA and the national agencies in making their own decision po regarding the matter, kasi the contract between SIPCOR and Proscelco po is done with NEA, and they have a power supply agreement po between the two. So on our end, we're hoping that they make the best decision. I think CERC has already issued a show cause order po to SIPCOR. But for the long term, we're really just focusing on making sure that we have other alternatives, especially in the renewable energy department. So hopefully with the passage of the supplemental power agreement, we can explore that. Or I think NEA will make, once again, I'm hoping that NEA will make the best decision for the island, since this is more of their specialty and expertise as well. So I'm sure they would know the best decision and direction for the province po.
And lastly po, for the, just to be clear lang po, para po dun sa mga affected communities, kanina natanong po ni Diego yung mga business sectors, but this time around yung mga residente po natin, especially now na pabalik na po sa klase yung mga estudyante natin, yung mga teachers na talagang kailangan po ang kuryente, supply ng kuryente, steady supply ng kuryente para po sa pag-aaral.
Yes po, I think when it comes to going back to school, living your day-to-day lives, steady power source is really necessary, because especially in Siquijor, where even the water is reliant on stable power source po, it's really important that we really need to make sure that we hold these corporations, these groups accountable po, and we can ensure that this steady supply is always supplied with a necessary backup, diba? Kasi there has to be some leeway. At the moment, with the rental gensets po, we have that power, but we do not have the leeway. That's why si Governor Jake alongside President Bongbong Marcos is really fast-tracking also the repair of the remaining gensets. So we really have a little bit of wiggle room in case the inevitable does happen, and of course some gensets will due to wear and tear break po, kaya we have steady surplus po. I think that's the biggest priority po, to ensure that the residents don't have a break, because when there's a break po, even just 1 or 2 hours po every day, that's 1 to 2 hours too long, especially in the mornings when people are getting ready for school, getting ready for work.
Very quickly na lang din po, sir, yung sa supply po ng tubig. Kasi yung sabi nga nila po dyan, power no water din, affected din yung supply ng tubig nila dyan. Kamusta po ngayon?
Well, to my knowledge po, since power is back, there is a relatively
Steady supply na
water is actually quite regulated now. I think the water levels are okay now since power is back.
Okay.
But we're also calling, I think we're also happy that si President Bongbong Marcos is also having the LUA look into the water situation as well. Because, of course, water is the most essential basic need in the household. I think right now, many places still need a more accessible means to get water into their communities po. That's why si Governor Jake has also advocated as a short-term solution po yung water truck, and as a medium-term solution po yung bulk water project namin. Pero ultimately, we really are calling on our partners to really explore maybe how we can improve the water systems even further.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Dale Tudtud, Provincial Administrator and Tourism Officer of Siquijor, for joining us today.
Thank you po. Thank you, everyone.
May sakutin ko lang may mga sa social media kung kaano-ano ko daw si Attorney Claire Castro at si Franz Castro.
Kamag-anak mo yata sila eh.
Sabi kasi ni VP Sara, mga Castro, wala daw mga matinong lumalabas sa mga
doon sa dalawa.
Sa dalawa, kaya huwag niyo ako awayin kasi ibang Castro po kami. Anak po ko ni Angelo Castro, ha. Hindi ko po pinsan si Congresswoman Franz at si spokesperson.
Hindi ka rin sure.
I don't know. Basta kami, from Ilocos kami.
Hindi ka rin sure.
Ilocos. Nasabi ko, taga Ilocos North pa kami. Sige. Happy Monday, everyone. That wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.